Hey there, hi there, ho there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are coming to us from around the world. My name is Dawn Zoldai, and I am your host for the Inner Drone Drones at Dawn podcast. And what a journey it's been this month. We've been focused on global drone regulations, and we've flown across Canada and Africa with an emphasis on South Africa. And today, I know I miss, Europe, of course. How could I forget Europe and Yves Morier that was with us previously? And today we're going to meet with Daniel Conde, or Danny, and he is going to talk to us about South American drone regulations. So without further ado, welcome, Danny, to the podcast.
Hello, Don. Thank you for having me here with you, and I'm really excited to be here. So let's start.
What a pleasure it is to have you. I met, I'll do air quotes, met Danny virtually through the Iberoamerican drone conference last year. What an incredible event you all put on, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But just a reminder, everybody out there, this is a live event, so please put your comments, your questions, your positive encouragement in the chat. We absolutely love to see that. And this podcast is for you. It's to help educate you. So like I said, go ahead and ask your questions. So let's just jump right in then, Danny. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. So my name is Daniel, and I am from Colombia. I have been working in the drone industry for almost 7 years now. I started working in Colombia. I had two different companies there, two drone services companies. And then we co-founded with some of my colleagues the Drone Professional Association, and we started working with this or in this beautiful journey. And yes, from there we are just working in a drone industry, hopefully to make a better and safer space for drone industry, for drone pilots, for drone workers, etc.
Well, I was I was telling Danny before we came on here live that in about 2015, when I was still in the United States Air Force as a colonel, military lawyer, I had the absolute privilege to go down to Colombia and with a small legal team. And we met there with all the different stakeholders, not only the Colombian military, but the police and the Civil Aviation Authority, people from industry. And we really just started those conversations about what should regulations look like in the drone space. And I love to hear that Danny has been on the forefront of this. He has been creating the APD, the Asociación Profesionales de Drones, which
Very
is
good.
Professional Drone Association. So tell us a little bit about your work with APD, Danny, and what it does.
Awesome. So at that time in 2015, we actually didn't have a regulation, like a real regulation. So we started thinking about, okay, we want to work in the drone industry, but there is nothing that can organize people in order for them to work and to grow the industry. So our initial thoughts were what can we do to promote better practices and to grow the industry from the inside? Because we were already operators, drone operators, and we wanted to have a really good industry. And yes, we were at the beginning 10 people working in this association. And right now we are more than 35 people working full time to build a strong community and to build awareness about drones and to build all these kind of safety procedures and standardization working in Latin America. So from Mexico to Argentina, we have some workers and volunteers there that works with us. And yes, it's been an interesting journey through the years.
And one of the things that through APD that you've created with your team is the Ibero-American Drone Conference. Like I said, last year I had the absolute privilege to be a speaker at that, talking about vertiport infrastructure and some of the challenges we face even here in the United States. So tell us a little bit about how that came about and what the IDC is about as well.
Awesome. So the Iberoamerican Drone Conference, we love to think about that as a knowledge platform and a meeting point for different kind of professional, not only in the UAS drone industry, but also in the industries related. So that is like the space to be if you are in Latin America or if you are interested in Latin America in specific fields related to drones. It's a big effort that we do to bring all these kind of latest events or latest news in the drone industry, the latest companies and speakers. And we gather together both in Spanish and in Portuguese. And we have some translators in real time. So we have different kind of nationalities coming together, and it's the perfect spot to have a lot of people interested in the drone industry focused in Latin America.
So you're going to have another one this year, and it will be virtual as well?
Yes, yes, yes. We are thinking about having it digital once again. Why? Because of the whole situation right now, and it's going to be held in the November, from the 11th until the 13th of November of this year.
All right. Well, I hope to be a part of that because it was such a great event, and so thanks for doing that. But you mentioned how this your association and this conference is focused on bringing people together, particularly across Latin America, as you said, from Mexico all the way down to the bottom of the continent. So, we've talked to Europe, we've talked to Canada, United States. We all have a federal, I'll call it a federal or an overarching body. Europe has EASA, the European Union's Aviation Safety Agency. We have the Federal Aviation Administration, and then Canada has Transport Canada. When we spoke with Africa, they have, the African Union has some interest in possibly creating high-level guidance or regulations for drones. Is there something equivalent in South America at this time, Danny?
So that's a really good point and a really good challenge for us, because right now, as we are different countries and every single country is trying to fight for their goals, for their activities, and so on, we have found that it's really difficult to convince the regulators to work together towards a common regulation that should be the dream for us, but that right now is not happening. So just to give you an example, each one of the 15 or 16 countries in the region has its own regulation. And that's really, really complicated to be able to operate, for example, in Colombia, and then to go to Chile, and then to go to Brazil, because each country is going to have their own regulations. And this is kind of the challenge that we have, that we are facing right now. We have tried to approach several regulators, authorities, and even if we have already started to make some progressions, it's really, really slow. It's not as fast as we would like. But anyways, we have the starting point, and now we have to grow over there. We know that with the pandemic situation, we have an extra challenge there. So we will see how it goes, but at least we started already the conversations with some of the authorities.
Well, and that's important. And what I heard you say, I believe, is that all of the countries have their own regulations. That's in contrast with Africa, where some countries don't have any regulations at all, and some have outright banned the use of drones. So that's actually encouraging. Is there a place, Danny, that if someone a business or a company wants to come to South America and in a particular country, where can they find the best information on the regulations that apply?
Awesome. So most of the countries has its own federal aviation authority. So that's a really good point to start. But if you want to go further, you can contact us. You can contact us as APD, and we can provide you with official information, because our aim is to help you to be able to fly to and to operate drones in a safely manner in each of the countries that we are in. So we have a lot of information, a lot of good resources and sources. So you can go with us and ask whatever question you may have, and we will likely answer your questions, or at least your general questions, and then you can start from there.
Perfect. Let's make sure at the end to remind me, Danny, to give out your contact information and how they can reach you or APD. So that would be really important. So first, also, I wanted to thank you for being on our Clubhouse last week. So everybody, Danny was on our Clubhouse drop-in audio chat. It's every Thursday. It's called Drone Law Connections. And I do that with Maggie Schuster and Nettie Davis. And we had Danny in there talking about these things. And one thing that Maggie raised, I think, is a great point that I want to kind of reinforce here, is this idea that even if you can read the regulations, right, it's always good to have a boots on the ground contact person in that country that can kind of marshal you through their process and what you need to do. Can people also get that kind of information through APD and through you, Danny?
Yes, of course. Yes, I mean that the most important thing with us is that we are going to give you official information. And other than that, yes, beyond that, we can connect you with the people that is more willing to help you in each country. So, for example, if you are willing to fly to Argentina, we have really good contacts there. So you can, for example, be hosted by some of our partners there, and you can ask as many questions as you have, because one of the most important things is before flying and before deciding to go to a place, to be sure that you are going to be able to fly safely and legally in each countries, as we just mentioned. There are different kind of regulations. So if you are, for example, thinking that you are going to find the same regulation that in the US or in Europe, and you are going to our countries, you are going to be faced to a reality that is maybe really different to what you expected before.
Yeah, that's so important. I know Maggie raised that issue of, even if you can fly, can you bring the images back out of the country, right? Because you've taken photographs. And so there's all kinds of things you really need to think through before you fly your drone in another country, if you're not from there. So I believe you also mentioned on Clubhouse, Danny, this idea that you've been able to work with at least a couple countries to almost get reciprocal approvals. In other words, say someone from Argentina gets certified from the Argentinian Civil Aviation Authority, whatever they call themselves, and they also want to fly in Chile, that you've been able to orchestrate a couple of reciprocity agreements between some of these countries to recognize each other's pilot licenses. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm going to explain you more or less how that works. So, for example, if I am in Colombia and I want to fly in Chile and in Colombia, as we have offices both in Chile and in Colombia, we can do the procedures inside the association. So we can train you in Colombia, for example, and once you are in Chile, you can go to our offices in Chile and ask for this match, and you are asked to have an extra training depending on the regulation or on the country that you are coming to fly. But with us, you can do it internally. For example, with Argentina, because with each country happens a bit different. So, for example, with Argentina, what will happen is that if you train in Colombia and you are willing to fly in Argentina, we are going to contact you with our partner in Argentina, who is the one that is going to certify you and to deliver all the papers to the national authority. And then you are going to be able to fly there as well.
Well, what a great service that is for pilots and companies that want to do business across South America. So thank you for doing that. Let's talk a little bit about your home country, Colombia, since every country is different. And it sounds like you're familiar with a number of countries, but clearly, I would think Colombia is the one near and dear to your heart as you're from there. You mentioned that in 2015 there was no regulation, but since there has regulations have been written in Colombia, can you tell us a little bit about that? And before you do, just kind of as a point of reference, a lot of people in our audience are familiar with Part 107. That's the United States version, 55 pounds and under, and all the different constraints like visual line of sight, daylight operations, not over people, all these kind of complex operations, I'd say, require either a waiver or some other rule that gets triggered. We had a couple of new rules come out this year in the United States. EASA and a number of other organizations use the JARIS SORA, which is the air and ground-based risk categories of open, specified, and certified. What do you use in Colombia, just as a point of comparison?
Yeah, so I wanted to start by mentioning that this regulation in which we are right now is the second regulation. So we had a previous one that was released in September 2015, and in that specific regulation we didn't have a lot of things as clear as we do have now. So in this first regulation we had like a good feeling of what the industry was and what the interests of the government were at that time. But rapidly we saw, and the regulators saw, how the technology developed as really, really fast paced, and they had to change the regulation at the end of 2018. And that regulation is the one that we have already right now. So in this second regulation, the one that is right now available, we have three categories as well. And as we name in Colombia, is open category, regulated category, and certified category. In the first one, in the open category, you cannot do almost anything. You can fly, but you cannot fly near people, near buildings, near mostly anything. You just can fly in the countryside, and you cannot do any commercial activities and so on. In the regulated category or class, you can fly near people, near buildings, you can do also a lot of commercial stuff. So it's in this specific category in which most people, most drone operators want to be, because it's the one that gives you the more freedom without demanding from you a lot of effort. So to be in this regulated category, you need to pass a course. You need to train yourself, and then you have to give some papers for the Aerocivil, that is the Federal Aviation Authority here in Colombia. And then we have the certified category, and in this certified category there is like a lot of gray spaces. So right now nobody can fly in the C category, in the certified category, and we are waiting for further developments on the regulation to see whether or not is going to be we are going to be able to fly in this interesting category as well.
So just to clarify, the open category sounds more like almost like recreational, kind of out away from people. And then the regulated sounds more like the what is the specified, I think it's called, category in Europe. Is there any kind of weight limitations for the regulated category?
Yes, 25 kilograms. No. You can go until up to 150. You can go up to 150 kilograms in the sorry. You can go up to 25 kilograms in the regulated category, and up to 150 kilograms in the certified category.
Okay, I see. So tell us a little bit about this training. Training is something in the United States, it's so much in flux. We just, added some night operations to the training requirement here. And that's online and it's a test. Actually, I take it back. It's not really a test. They're saying it's online training, but there's something at the end and people are passing, but it's not a test. So anyway, what is the training that's required in Colombia for the registered category?
So it's actually quite extensive. It's quite extensive course or training that you have to pass in Colombia. So you have to take law, you have to take communications, you have to take meteorology, you have to take navigation, and you have to understand all the implications that has to fly a drone. So it's quite an extensive and an interesting course. I would say that is maybe too detailed, but it is what it is right now. So it's kind of interesting. And for the certified category, we don't still have so much information. So I won't say anything right now, but still for the regulated is quite extensive.
So I'm going to ask you, what kinds of operations, and you said commercial, but what are people doing in Colombia then under this registered category from a commercial standpoint? Like what is this regulation enabled?
The main category or the main activity that is currently being developed by operators is all the things related with photogrammetry. With photogrammetry, that is the science of measuring through pictures. So when you want to measure something through pictures, you can do a lot of stuff. You can calculate volumes, you can measure areas, perimeters, you can do followings on infrastructure, buildings, or civil infrastructures, and so on. So one of the main activities right now is all the related with photogrammetry in several aspects: architecture, archaeology, civil engineering, and so on. And then we have filming and photography. That is a really interesting one, and it's like the I would say that is the way in which people first like the first sight of drones, like the first introduction to drones. So you know about drones because maybe you see a film that shows how drones are used, or maybe you see a commercial or something like that, and then you start exploring another kind of activities. But yes, photogrammetry, then filming, and then a little bit of agriculture.
Okay, so what I'm not hearing is drone deliveries. That is not happening yet because that's going to be maybe in the certified category.
Yes, absolutely. So right now there is something happening really interesting in Colombia and in Latin America, and that's that at least for APD, for example, for APD, we are trying to work really near with authorities to develop this transportation, because for us, we think that transportation, that drone transportation is going to change and to shape the future of the industry. So we are partnering with several kind of institutions. We are working really, really close with, for example, with some health institutions to provide medicine or blood or vaccines, even vaccines, through drones. That is a whole development, and that I think that we are just we have just saw the tip of the iceberg of this interesting industry in transportation. But I will bet that there we are going to have a lot to see in the near future.
Awesome. Yeah, a couple things happening in the chat here. So we've got a fan here from Chicago. So hey, good morning, Chicago. Great to see you. And Scott Schofman, who is not only a drone pilot but also an attorney out of Texas. He's part of the Drone Service Providers Alliance here in America. He actually clarified there is an exam at the end of the ALC 677 training. So thank you, Scott, for setting us straight on that. I figured there was, but I know there was this whole, is it a test? Is it training? At least when it first came out, it's some of the new rules are a little confusing. So, oh, look at this. We have someone from Colorado Springs, my hometown. So, hey, Colorado, great to see you. And another person coming in, Booker from, I'm not sure where, but good morning to you as well. So that's awesome. Thanks everybody for jumping in the chat. So let me just clarify a couple things, and then I want to talk a little bit about counter UAS. So under the regulations you have in Colombia, operations over people right now, particularly over crowds, are not happening.
Forbidden,
right?
completely
Okay.
forbidden.
Yeah. Night operations, which we've just kind of opened up a little bit here in America, those also can happen in Colombia with very specific certification and authorizations.
You can ask for an authorization to fly in nights, yes.
Okay, awesome. And what about remote identification? That is something that, we put out in January of this year, a remote ID rule, broadcast only, much to many people's surprise. It was supposed to have a network component. It does not, at least at this time in the United States. Europe has moved out with network. Canada's not quite there yet. They're not thinking about it. And Australia is next week, so we'll hear more then. But Africa, they don't have a remote ID at this time. What about South America? Is remote ID something you guys are thinking about?
Like, it's difficult to say because as we are so many countries having different regulations, it's difficult to state a general answer. But being the more general as I can, I can be. I would say that the answer is we are not quite there, and we are just starting to think about remote ID. Um, and we are trying to develop different kind of things, but with the pandemic situation a lot of things get just stopped, so we are waiting for the regulators to restart all those processes, remote ID, UTM, and all of that. So we will see in the near future, but right now we don't have any kind of remote ID.
Yeah, the COVID pandemic has been rough on many people across the world. And it sounds like in South America, some of the funding that was possibly going to some of these projects has been diverted to COVID and pandemic relief, which makes a lot of sense. And so hopefully we'll come out on the other side of this thing soon. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned UTM, and I know that's something also somewhat on the back burner now. Actually, I wanted to mention to the crowd, since we're talking about remote ID, and Danny, this is something you may want to dial into. ASTM International is having, looking at my calendar, I think it's tomorrow, is putting on a free webinar about their standard, their means of compliance. And so I did post that on LinkedIn the other day. If you look me up, if you're not following me, follow me. But that's something you may want to dial into and just hear what ASTM is putting out as their standard as you think through this on behalf of South American countries. Let's pivot for a second to counter UAS. So, remote ID is a little bit about this, right? Because it doesn't matter where you are on the globe. Drones, at least for the most part right now, are not completely autonomous. There's a human behind them, and sometimes they act carelessly, cluelessly, and maybe even criminally. So shout out, by the way, to White Fox Technologies, just got an Air Awards today for their new counter UAS detection technology called Stratus. It's the first cloud-based detection technology. What are you doing, if at all, in Colombia vis-a-vis counter UAS? Do you have any rules on that or any procedures?
Okay, yes. So just to begin, it's on Wednesday. The webinar is on Wednesday, apparently.
Yep, Scott posted that
Awesome.
up. So thank you, Scott.
Thank
Everybody
you.
check that out in the chat.
Thank you. Yes. So in Colombia, the counter UAS products, you can use it only if you are part of the government. So you are not allowed to use anything of that if you are not part of the government, and that makes sense because it's the government who is or who has the power to block signal and to interfere with drone activities. So right now, I am aware that the government has used counter UAS and counter drones technologies, mostly to prevent like any acts of terrorism or something like that when near to the president or when near to military forces and military zones and so on. But in general, I would say that we haven't used that much the counter UAS technology, but government has the technology. That's for a fact. And we don't have much information on how they use it. But in certain occasions, we are being aware that they are using it.
Well, that makes sense. And, even in the United States, there's only technically four federal agencies that can actually take action against a drone. But the ability to detect a drone, I think, is a little more liberal about, how you do that. And I think remote ID will open that up more because at least in the United States, uh, right now, those message elements that will be broadcast will also be available to the public. So they will be able to see, for example, an electronic or digital license plate of the drone that's possibly, flying over their backyard improperly or something like that. So more to follow there, but very interesting. Well, boy, this has been incredible. Let me ask you: is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we dial out here shortly?
Yeah, so I just wanted to invite you to the Iberoamerican Drone Conference to be really connected. If you are interested in Latin America, in Colombia, or in Mexico, in Argentina, and Chile, this is the opportunity for you to connect with all what is happening right now in Latin America and to see opportunities, investment opportunities, opportunities to do interesting things with drones and to see what is the state of the art there. Maybe you can also contribute there. So why not participating? So it's going to take place from the 11th until the 13th of November this year. It's going to be virtual event. But yes, I wanted just to invite you all and yes, say that it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, very exciting, and yeah, I love that. I think it's Kim James up there, a guest I had on last week. She said, "So we're not alone in Africa." There's a lot of countries still developing their drone regulations, and certainly no one's alone in this world. I mean, we are all connected, and I think we can all learn from each other, which is really the point of this podcast and having people on like Danny to talk about what is happening in a great way in Latin America, and also maybe some needs that they have. So this is just great. I will say also a fellow Colombian, if you haven't met him, Felipe Varon from Varon Vehicles will be on the podcast in a couple weeks. The first Monday of June, I'm kicking off an advanced air mobility month, and Felipe and Varon Vehicles are looking to have flying taxis in Colombia. So he's working with a friend of mine as well, Rex Alexander, who's an expert in vertiports. So I'm so excited to see what's going to come out of Colombia, because I feel like between you and Felipe and Rex, you guys are going to leap ahead of everybody, and I'm going to be watching this, and I hope I'm go down there for some ribbon cuttings, because when I was down there last time, I had actually exploded my calf muscle, my gastrocnemius, and I was in like a full leg cast. So I couldn't do a lot of sightseeing at the time, and it was such a beautiful country. I'd love to go back. But anyway, so Daniel, before we dial off, can you please tell people how they can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So our social media is at APD Pilotos, APD Pilotos, APD Pilotos. And from if you want to know more about the IDC, the Ibero-American Drone Conference, you can join us at idc.community. And even if you have some questions on any particularity or Latin America drone regulations and so on, you can contact me through my email is Daniel, Daniel .conde, CONDE at apd.ong.
.ong or org?
ONG.
Okay, ONG. All right, awesome. And thanks, Kim, for the positive comments. She's saying she loves these chats. I equally love them. I mean, this is such a great way for me to start my week. And I have been learning so much from my guests like you, Danny, and I really appreciate you. Appreciate Kim, who was on here last week, and everybody out there that dials in. Thank you so much for your time. We very much look forward to staying in touch and learning more from you and hopefully working with you. The one thing I wanted to say for everybody out there, next week we are going to fly to Australia with Jackie Dumacic. If you haven't met Jackie, she's amazing. She's a fellow Woman to Watch award recipient, and she is the CEO of Hover UAV. And they're doing some incredible stuff down there in Australia with Beyond Visual Line of Sight and their BVLOS hub. So more to follow from Jackie next week. Very excited about that. And like I said, mark your calendars, because we are doing advanced air mobility in the month of June, and it's going to be quite the ride. So anyway, one last comment here. We got a couple here. Let's see. We've got a naysayer for flying taxis. It will never happen. I've seen flying taxis over 10 conferences. They're in a controlled environment. I've seen more selfies than even one deployment. That's my belief. And I'm hopeful. I think it's going to be great, and it's definitely worth talking about. But you got Lilium down in Orlando saying they're going to be flying in 2 years. So we'll see if it happens. What I can tell you is that through the Air Force and AFWorks and Agility Prime, these certifications are getting fast tracked, and Joby and Beta are doing great things. And Beta just got the first military certification for an electric vertical takeoff and landing manned aircraft in the entire Department of Defense and in the country. So that's exciting news, and that just happened a couple weeks ago. So I'm more positive on it, and we shall see. The last thing was Scott said, thanks for discussing the reciprocity agreements. We could really benefit from more of those around the world, and I totally agree. So hopefully we can learn from your example, Danny, and see a little bit more of that out there. So anyway, thank you again for joining us. Hope to see everybody next week for Australia. Oh, by the way, Jackie will be on our Clubhouse. I think it's 3 a.m. for her, but it's 11 o'clock Mountain, and it is 1 o'clock Eastern this Thursday on Clubhouse audio chat. It's now available on Android. So join us Thursday on the Drone Law Connections. Should be a lot of fun. Maybe Danny, you could dial into, hear what Australia's doing. And for those that want to learn more about what I'm doing also, besides LinkedIn, I'm kind of a voracious poster. You join my Patreon community. I post up these. I'm going to have some wisdom from Danny as extra bonus footage on there, and also my 3 times a week blog. So anyway, that's it for now. Everybody out here, have a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Take good care.